The spring season's been going on for some time now, and I've got to say, it's one of the best seasons so far. But just as this season's full of killer anime, it's also got some rotten trash, and seeing that this video's kind of late this time, sorry about that, instead of doing the usual ones to watch recommendations, I thought, why not change it a bit and instead do what I like to call the Spring 5. After watching almost every single anime this season has to offer, I think I'm more than qualified to rank what this season's got and tell you what are the 5 best and worst shows. So let's hop into the Spring 5, starting off with the worst 5. I've talked about In Another World with my smartphone before, and sure enough, it's just a continuation of the same old power fantasy isekai crap that tries to cater to a certain demographic badly. This time, I watched just the first episode, and sure enough, it was exactly the same as season 1. Just one of the more boring, pandering anime in the last couple of years. My best description of it would be like starting a new RPG with endgame quality gear, which is Toya's smartphone in this case. So there's no real sense of tension and danger, and while that doesn't always turn me off to an anime, here, it's just executed poorly, and it doesn't help that Toya doesn't really have a personality. I think it's because we're supposed to insert ourselves, but I don't want to be him. Okay, that's sort of a lie. But I'm not wrong about my critiques against him, and the harem is no better either. Instead of having any real sort of discussion or conversation, they just keep talking about why they fell in love with Toya, and of course, these conversations have to take place where you absolutely want no one to see you watching. I've talked about In Another World on my smartphone multiple times now, and each time, I'm still amazed by the fact that it actually got a second season. The only reason why it's so low on here is because I kind of knew what I was going into, so I was prepared for it. But that doesn't change the fact that this anime is one of the blandest, generic anime in recent years, with an overpowered protagonist, a questionable harem, and a magic system that's just there to further serve the power fantasy. It's just a dime a dozen. Yuri Is My Job might be just the right anime for a certain demographic, but sadly, or in this case gladly, I'm not it. Yuri Is My Job is about Hime, a conniving, scheming high school girl who acts all cute and perfect in order to become a trophy wife of a billionaire, which is already a character setting that gets on my nerves. But when she runs into a manager of a certain cafe, which has the theme of a private all-girls academy, and supposedly injures her, she's kind of blackmailed to work in her place. That's exactly the same thing you'd see in a Yakuza side story, but without the hilarious punchline, which I think kind of sums up why I don't like this perfectly. But I haven't yet gotten to the worst part. The cafe's working environment is just toxic. Hime just keeps getting told that she's hated by her senior Mitsuki over and over again without even taking the proper time to teach her the ropes. It's obvious what this anime is trying to achieve. The end goal here is to get Hime to be more genuine and honest, and her winning over her peers. But if I don't like a single character, then what am I watching for? It's not an action show where I'd watch for the events. These kinds of anime are run by the force of their characters, and in this case, the lack thereof. If you're watching Yuri Is My Job because it's got Yuri in the name, then don't be fooled. I wouldn't exactly classify it as a Yuri anime. It's just pretend Yuri. It's a definite skip for me. My one-hit kill sister was the isekai I recommended in my spring preview video, and in hindsight, all I can say is, what was I thinking? It's exactly the type of anime that I wouldn't want to be seen watching. It's not exactly a new premise either. It's just a different, yet the same level of creepy spin-off of the mother isekai. After Asahi gets into an accident and goes into a coma, he's of course transported to another world, and now, every bad isekai's main character is aware of isekai stories, and think they get to be overpowered in the new world. But this time, Asahi is just your basic NPC with weak-ass stats, and just as he's about to be attacked by a dragon, he's saved by Maya, his sister, who's actually the one who's overpowered and has one of the most over-the-top brother complex I've seen in anime in a while. It's actually really creepy. She actually kept banging her head over and over again until she fell unconscious just to get isekai'd with Asahi, and now, Maya keeps killing high-level monsters while Asahi takes all the credit, due to the fact that if the guild finds out that his achievements are a lie, he'll be branded a criminal. My one-hit kill sister is exactly the type of anime that gets people to cringe at otakus. However, despite all this, I know that my one-hit kill sister shouldn't be taken so seriously. It's just supposed to be a goofy anime that doesn't take itself too seriously, but I just can't get past over the incest overtones. But if you could get past it, then you've got a goofy fun anime to enjoy, but speaking for myself, I just can't. The aristocrat's otherworldly adventure, serving gods who go too far, is exactly the same type of anime as In Another World with my smartphone, and somehow, it's even worse. It actually had a nice start, with the MC putting his life on the line to rescue 2 girls from getting stabbed, but later, the anime tried to pull off a Konosuba and tell us that the stabber would have tripped and failed regardless, so in order to make it up for him, he's instead reborn as Kain, the son of an aristocrat in a world of swords and magic with OP stats, because it's an isekai, and uses it to climb up the ranks of society. Was that interesting for you? No? Well, neither for me. It has no redeeming quality about it, which is why I compared it to the smartphone isekai, but in fact, you can put any generic isekai here and it wouldn't matter. It's got the same generic OP main character that can basically destroy anything with one swing of his sword, which right away means that there aren't any real stakes in this world. Every single girl he saves falls in love with him, no matter how old they are, which is very creepy. Another older sister with a brother complex, and your basic medieval Europe country. Basically, it's every bland isekai that ever came out. It's replaceable by any other one, but if you wanted to waste your time with a bad isekai, then you couldn't do much better than the aristocrat's otherworldly adventure. The worst anime this season hands down is Kamikatsu. I swear I don't hate isekai, but most of the isekai this season have just been that bad, and by far, Kamikatsu's the worst offender. I haven't seen an anime that triggers me like this in a long time, but its one saving grace is that it's not your generic isekai. Yukito is killed by his father's cult thinking that he would somehow survive 3 days underwater and ascend into a higher being, which of course he doesn't. But he's reincarnated in another world that's devoid of religion, and after spending some time living a quaint, simple life in a farming village, he finds out that the world has a messed up end-of-life system, where people are selected to take their own lives by the government, and after the people who took him in, Aru and her sister, are selected, he goes to save them, but he's too late, and after almost dying, Mitama, his father's cult deity, appears and saves him and resurrects his friends. I know that usually boring shows are considered worse than shows that make you mad, but Kamikatsu just gets me so angry every single time I watch it, and it's not just due to its concept. Yes, I do have some trouble with a concept that to me seems like it's kind of glorifying cults, but it's not just that. The pacing of each episode is off. It's a rushed mess trying to get somewhere without properly giving us the time to comprehend what happened. And of course, its CGI is just puke-worthy. It's not just ugly, it's horrendous, and it doesn't blend well with the world. For example, whenever the tavern's mascot appears, it just feels like it was put here by mistake from some other anime. It's always brighter than everything else around it, even when they're inside. It's like it has its own light source. Even though Kamikatsu got one hell of a cast, to me, it seems like they blew all their money on the voice actors and then later found out that there wasn't enough room in the budget to make a decent anime, so instead, they put whatever they can together. All of this is just my theory. I don't actually know what happened behind the scenes, but Kamikatsu is my number one third pile this season, and one of the few anime I actually despise. Just skip it. Now that that's over with, it's time to go into the 5 best anime this season, and I think you can already guess what my top 2 are. But let's start from the top. Quick disclaimer, no sequels first, then I'll tell you my list with the sequels. Skip and Loafer is my dark horse this season. The one anime that just gets me out of any bad mood and gets me all happy and giddy. It's about Mitsumi Iwakura who leaves her countryside town to go to high school in Tokyo as according to her life plan. But she has one little quirk. Her social common sense is practically non-existent, but her eccentric nature is actually what draws people to her. Instead of being all shy or trying to keep up appearances, she's one of the more genuine characters this season who just does what she thinks is best, and I love her for that. And it's not just her, but the entire cast is rounded out well. They all feel like real genuine people with all their traits and quirks, and you couldn't ask for much more in a slice of life anime. Up until now, there wasn't one episode where I didn't come out feeling all happy and warm inside, and its OP is one of my favorites this season. It captures the essence of the anime perfectly, with a happy song and a cute dance between Mitsumi and Sosuke, and hey, I'm a sucker for anime dances. Skip and Loafer is just the perfect show for when you're having a bad day, and usually, that'd be enough for it to be my number 1, but it only came in at 5. That's how strong this season is. I've seen a lot of people online describe Mashle as a cross between Harry Potter and One Punch Man, and honestly, it describes the anime down to a T. Mash Burndead is a teenager who can't wield magic in a world full of magic, so instead, he trains his muscles until he becomes unstoppable, and fools everyone and enters Eastern Magic Academy in order to become the top student and the divine visionary so that he could live in peace with his father. Now, wasn't that synopsis full of action? However, it's a comedy anime, and one of the best this season at that. It's got a somewhat similar sense of comedy as One Punch Man, with a stoic main character who basically solves every single problem with his muscles. Can figure out which way a door opens? Remove it. Need to fly with a broom? Just throw it and hop on it. It's this absurd sense of comedy that's right down my alley, and I couldn't have more fun with it. I know it's not the best looking anime this season, but who cares? It's just fun. I think the Harry Potter cross One Punch Man description is apt, but just saying that would be doing it wrong. It's kind of a parody, and one that made me laugh out loud, and my philosophy is, if an anime made me laugh out loud intentionally, then it's good. The Dangers in My Heart surprised me this season. I thought it looked good in the trailers, but I never thought it'd be one of my favorites, and now, look where it is. It's about Kyotaro Ichikawa, who despite his normal looks, he always has murder in his heart. And the one he wants to kill the most is the school idol Anna Yamada. But while reading alone in the library, he starts to meet Anna more and more, and discovers how much of a ditz Anna is, and actually supports her and tries to help her from the sidelines. At first, I honestly thought I wouldn't like The Dangers in My Heart due to the fact that every single synopsis I read of it always starts off with the murder aspect. But the anime actually turned out to be one of the more wholesome ones this season. It's got one of the best character chemistry this season with Kyotaro and Anna, and every single time they appear together, the show was a blast, especially Anna. It's not an anime that needs to be overly complex. It's just a good romance story that snuck up on me out of nowhere, and that's why it's my number 3 this season. To think I almost missed out on Heavenly Delusion. I only knew about it when making the spring preview video. Without that, I probably would have never heard of it. But the fact that in such a short amount of time, it went from me not knowing about it to being one of my top 2 anime this season is impressive. And if you haven't watched it yet and haven't even heard about it, then I recommend that you go in blind and skip this part, but just know that you're possibly in for the anime of the year. Heavenly Delusion is a world of 2 halves. One where children are fostered inside a facility, providing them with a safe environment to be raised in, which might be considered heaven, and the other half where it's hell, where monsters fell down on the earth, destroying everything in their path, annihilating most of the human race. So now, we follow Maru and Kiriko from the outside trying to reach heaven, and Tokyo from the inside trying to learn more about the outside world. It's a world full of mystery and intrigue that actually gets you to use your mind while watching, and not a lot of shows can do that and actually have it to pay off. But so far, Heavenly Delusion delivers on that and then some. It also helps that although they live in a vegetated rundown Japan, Kiriko and Maru aren't just brooding, but there's banter and laughs between them, which might be my favorite aspect of this whole journey so far.
今更なんだけど、サメとかワニとかいないだろうね。知らん。おい！俺が殺せるのはヒルコだけだからね。もしワニがわーっと来たら、お姉ちゃんがなんとかしないと。
It's also got one of the best OPs this season and probably my favorite visually. The animation and images are just beautiful, and Innocent Ignorance by Bish is the perfect song to complement it. The ED is also my favorite. Heavenly Delusion is a better Last of Us, and that's saying something. Was there ever any doubt for my number 1? Oshinoko is my top anime this season, and if you just watched the first episode, then you probably already know why. Ai Hoshino is a talented and beautiful 16-year-old idol who goes into hiatus due to health reasons, which comes as a shock to Dr. Goro Amamiya, her number 1 fan, but he ain't seen nothing yet. To his shock, Ai Hoshino appears at his hospital pregnant, and after taking some time to process the fact that his favorite idol is pregnant with twins, he promises her a safe delivery. But on the night of her due date, he's stabbed by a crazed stalker and killed, but to his surprise, he wakes up in Ai's lap as her baby, as Aquamarine Hoshino, and now, he, along with his sister Ruby, will do everything in their power to help Ai climb up to the top. I already made a video just about Oshinoko's 82-minute first episode, and all I can add to that is this. A couple of weeks later, and this episode never left my mind. That's how much of an impact it left on me, and I don't want to be the guy that overhypes a show, but trust me, Oshinoko is a must-watch. It's also got my favorite OP this season, with the song Idol by Yo Asobi that talks about the life of an idol, and actually feels like it was sung by Ai herself. Trust me, even if you think the beginning is a bit slow, bear with it. The payoff is worth it. And that was my top 5 anime without sequels, but here's what it looked like with sequels. This spring's been good to us so far, but that came at the cost of having to leave out a bunch of stellar anime that I actually love, like Insomniacs After School, My Clueless First Friend, Deadmau5 Deathplay, and many, many more, and they're all worthy of being in my top 5. Luckily, there's much more great than bad anime. It's just a shame that most isekai this season weren't all that great. But hey, what's your best and worst anime this season so far? Let me know down below, and if you liked the video, then why not consider leaving a like and subscribe? It'll help out the channel a ton. And with that, this has been Anio, and until next time, matane.